live from the far reaches of the galaxy. It's the Pilot Review Show. On tonight's show, console news, the Emmy tribute to Star Trek, and exploring the new support cruisers. Don't forget our other exciting segments. All this and more starts now on the Pilot Review Show.
Greetings, folks. I am Captain Blade J52, and I am joined this week by my merry band of cohorts. We have with us our resident console guy, Neela of the Daton.
What up, all?
Also joining us in voice is the RP hologram everyone knows and loves, Artie.
Hello.
And making his second show appearance is our new host, Crayo.
I don't know who this Crayo you speak of. I'm your Nagus.
Of course he goes there. Just to get...
Hey.
Of course he would do that too.
Hey, at least he didn't do the Ferengi scream.
Oh, God. Yeah, that is true, I guess. At least he didn't do that.
Otherwise, we'd be obligated to punch him in the face.
I've got a lot of Latinum offers available.
Oh, jeez. But, anyways, folks, we do have some good stuff to get through this week. There's actually a lot more to it this week than has been previously. We had delayed our show. Normally, we would have had it yesterday, but we wanted to delay due to the storm going on with the hurricane and all that kind of jazz. But anyways, let's get right into it, shall we, with our first blog for console.
Starting up, we got the Herc Dreadnought Infinity R&D promo. That is going on for 3 weeks, from the 11th of September to October 2nd. When you get a Research and Development Pack from the C-Store, you'll have a chance to either get 10 Lobby or the box for a Tier 6 promotional ship-up choice pack. So you'll be able to either get the Crayo Anorax, the Alachi Intel Dreadnought, Alachi Command Dreadnought, Special Requisition Pack on 23rd Century Tier 6, Jemadar Recon Ship, and Jemadar Strike Ship. And then when you do the 23rd Century, you'll either get the Constitution class, the the D7 Temple Battlecruiser, the Talis Temple Warbird, or you could win the Sona Collective Science Dreadnought, Amari Smuggler, the Zincathite Dreadnought Carrier, the Universe Temple Dreadnought, the Koth Temporal Heavy Dreadnought, Valkis Temporal Heavy Dreadnought. And then when you do the pack, when you buy the pack, you'll get 15 common, uncommon, rare, and very rare R&D materials, 15 uncommon, 6 rare, and 4 very rare, with 3 MK2, 3 MK6 or better, and 2 MK10 or better R&D components, with 3 random R&D catalysts, and 4 upgrade accelerators. And with the Herc Dreadnought carrier, you'll get the hull modifier is 51,000 at level 40, 58,650 at level 50, 68,000 at level 60. With the Bridge Office Stations, Lieutenant Commander Attack, Ensign Engineering, Commander Engineering, and / Command, 1 Lieutenant Science, and 1 Lieutenant Commander Universal, with 4 Attack, 5 Engineering, and 2 Science consoles. With the Special Console, Automated Defense Screen, which is the innate ability, you can have a swarm of Herc come from your ship, which will add a stack of automated defense every few seconds. When you receive damage from that direction, each stack grants the Starship increased all damage resistance. To further damage being received in that same direction. And when enough stacks happen, the ship becomes fully invulnerable to damage coming from that direction. And once it expires, there's a lockout period before any additional automated defense stacks may be obtained for that directional shield facing. And then each shield facing has its own independent stacking systems and lockout period. And then the big thing, the Starship trait, repulsive. While the trait is not activated, any engineering or command bridge officer ability will cause your ship to initiate a massive repel wave, targeting the nearest enemy starship within 3 kilometers. This causes some physical damage, like noise shields, and will push that foe and up to 2 other nearby enemy ships a good distance away from your vessel. Once triggered, there is a 10-second lockout. If there are no valid foes within 3 kilometers, it will not trigger the lockout. A good time to get research and development packs. If you need Lobby or R&D materials or components to make any weapons or shields that you may need, with a chance to get a ship. Back to you.
Absolutely. But yeah, like Neela's saying, if you're wanting to get, if you're wanting a chance at some of these ships, pretty much every one of them in here is a very good pickup for whatever character you're wanting to throw it on. Bug ships are nice. The 23rd Centuries are very good. This is actually your Tier 6 Constitution class that a lot of people have wanted for a while. That actually has the TOS skin. The Sona ship is pretty good. Pretty much every one of them on here, I think, are pretty good. Even the new Herc ship. But yeah, any comments from you, Sir Artie?
Not really. I'm to be honest, I'm really excited that to see the detail of the Herc ship up close and personal. Besides it being shooting at me and whatnot, but no, it looks pretty nice.
Yep. I think our resident Crayo has had to step AFK for a second, but anyways, like we're saying, definitely check that out if you want some R&D materials. If you need some, or want to take a chance at some starships, or you want some guaranteed low buy, at least 10 guaranteed low buy per pack, definitely check this out. And if you get a ship, well, that's even better. But moving along to our second article of the evening, we actually have the console patch notes for the 11th for you guys. And there's actually a fair amount to it. So, we're not going to read all of them, but
Nope, we'll just go over the main things.
Yep. But anyway, what's main stuff that stands out to you, Sir Neela? This is more your area.
Well, the big thing, for 3 weeks, back on, I believe it was Tuesday, or, yeah, Tuesday, when the patch happened, the Crystalline event returned. It will be there for 3 weeks. It has new reward and gameplay updates, meaning entity shards that it deploys are immune to control effects. These small shards will no longer buff the entity's damage for the entire queue, but instead they will give the entity buff stacks, which is a more powerful energy release after its absorption phase. Makes a potentially stronger energy release. And then they added a growing AoE indicator to show the area of the energy release and how long it will be before it goes off. Entity beam attack no longer applies a flight speed debuff to players, but instead the large shards on advanced difficulties will apply the flight speed debuff if they explode on a player. And then,
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a change that came to PC a little while ago?
yes,
Oh, okay, so it's
Yeah, they're just now getting the
catching
crystal
up.
event.
Okay, I gotcha.
yep. Then with the entity immune to damage while it's in its absorption phase. It's 15 seconds long rather than 30 seconds in normal. And once the entity is destroyed, a small little mini game to see if you can do it before you get booted out, because the time is when it's completely destroyed. It will explode into many small salvageable crystal fragments. They can be destroyed to gain 1 or 5 salvage from each of them. And then the changes will not affect the non-event queue with the initial rollout. And another thing I'd see under the general is the critical severity of enemy ships on normal difficulty has been reduced from 100% to 50%, but it does not affect anything on advanced or elite. But it's also subject to change pending further testing. Anything else you guys see from that?
Actually, yes.
Oh, you go ahead. Oh, all right. Well, most of the stuff I'm happy for is that they, although for console it's very interesting to do any costume design and all that, but I'm happy that they fixed a lot of the stuff for the Jem'Hadar captains to wear a lot of the reputation gear and other various uniforms. So I'm happy for that.
Big one I'd seen was they're supposed to have resolved issues where some people couldn't contribute towards a reputation project, which is a very big game breaker for a lot of people, especially if you're looking for those reputation traits, or if you're looking for that specific piece of reputation gear you couldn't contribute to the project. And yeah, that's a big one.
That would be a problem.
What about you, Sir Crayo? Anything in particular in the patch notes that sticks out to
Not
you?
particularly, but then I don't play on the console. I just noticed that they're just now getting the Crystalline event, I guess, and the Crystalline event update as well. Which I knew that they were on a staggered release cycle, but that's cool. That means it's been tested and balanced and everything for the console guys. So that's nice.
And normally the reason they do that is they also have to get the okay from the respective console people.
Right.
AKA Sony and Microsoft. Because they have to have the game down for a certain amount of time and get it okayed to be down that long.
Right.
Yeah. Like we're saying, there's a lot of stuff here in these patch notes. Too many for us to go over in very great detail. I did want to be sure Neela got the bits about the crystal event for you guys, because it has changed from what you guys remember. I think in a lot of ways for the better, but that's just me. But we will have a link in the description for you guys for this, so you can check that out. And yeah. Moving right along, we actually have the tribute given to Star Trek from the Emmys. This is something that I didn't know that they were doing until somebody actually caught it. But yeah, this is I'm not actually going to click on the video, but yeah, some thoughts from you guys on this. I don't really know what to say about this one.
Well, I felt like it was exciting to know what has happened and and what was there. Pretty nice little show of it. I do recommend watching the video when you get the chance. Me trying to put any description to it just doesn't do it justice, to be honest. But I'm bad at describing things. But that's besides the point.
Well, they won something called the Governor's Award, which I'm honestly not even sure what that is.
No, it was more just for the trip. But what I liked was the fact that it was Bill and I talking about it.
Suppose that is kind of cool. But yeah, like I say, we'll have a link to this for you guys to check it out. There's, from the way it's sounding here, there's not really much we can do to describe. It's one of those things you kind of got to see it for yourself. But anyway, we'll have that in the notes for you guys. If you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But moving along, we actually had our Crystal event, talking about it for the console. Now, we outlined some of the changes that are going to happen. Now, as far as the rewards go, this is what you guys are going to be getting. You're going to have a... it's going to give you an anti-proton beam that's going to unlock account-wide. You can either... well, anti-proton weapon, I should say. It's not strictly a beam. Then, once every 20 hours, you can get the... Crystal Shard, donate that to the project. And you get your choice of either a dual heavy cannon or a beam array. You actually get them both, but it's your choice of whichever one you want to use on the ship. Then you get 50,000 dilithium ore, 500 fleet marks, and 250 marks of your choice. It includes all of the current reputations except the Gamma Rep, which is one thing that kind of sucked here on PC too, but eh. Once you complete the main project, you'll have a chance to do a bonus 1 shard project that will give you 2,000 dil ore, 50 fleet marks, and 35 marks of your choice. Then there's now a 30-second briefing before the queue begins. I don't think they actually covered that. Did they cover that in the patch notes? I don't think they did. Yeah, that's one of the big things, is there's now the 30-second briefing. This was added so that if people have an issue with slow loading, or there's a problem, they can do this. This gives a chance for the carrier players as well to get some of their pets out. I know it's a very big deal to carrier players. The entity shards are immune to control effects. This does not mean that they are immune to the damage of an exotic ability like Gravity Well. They're immune simply to the pull, not the actual damage itself. I do want to clarify that for people. But it's looking like most of these were actually covered in the patch notes itself. That's just some of the major things I did want to point out. But I think I actually have in my inventory... yes I do. So for those of you that are curious on console, I actually have the weapons on me. I've maxed out the beam at the moment, so for those of you that are curious, and I've also re-rolled it, so you can see it actually comes with a it's a damage resistance debuff to the enemy. You get basically a standard disruptor proc. You also get a bit of healing to yourself, so very useful weapon, I think. And then you can see a little bit of the stats on the cannon there, hopefully, too. Now, I've not really done much with the cannons yet, but, yeah. So, thoughts from you guys on our rewards?
Fairly decent, I have to say. Very nice.
Yeah, anyways, not really much else we could say about that. Go out there and get the weapon. It's going to be very well worth it. If nothing else, it's a free thing that you can pick up. I highly recommend this particular beam if you're somebody that enjoys anti-proton. It's just a nice little something to add to your arsenal.
It's a nice beam. It's a nice weapon. The sound drives me nuts.
I think that's a complaint quite a few people actually have with anti-proton. But moving right along, we actually have an announcement for our support cruisers.
Okay, so as many have seen before, there's this little in-character kind of blog for some of the newer ships by the in-universe group known as Jace Interstellar. You might have seen them when they came out with the newer versions for the Odysseys and in those class of ships. So here they are at it again, talking about the Tier 6 Ambassador and the Klingon variants, the Klingon version of it. And what we have is the... oh, what they named this class. My bad. The Narendra.
Narendra.
That, and the Voral. so it kind of gives you a in-character view of how Starfleet and the Klingon Defense Force had a look at the classic style of both the ambassador the support cruiser look-alike, and then the Vorcha style.
As a Klingon, I will always know of it as the Vorcha.
Oh, Lord.
And kind of gave you more of a in-character feel of how it was all pieced together and where they came up with the look of the designs and now its new role in the bigger universe at hand. So, there you go. Very nice read, to be honest.
Yeah, I believe that about covers it for that one. But getting into the nitty-gritty, I'm actually going to touch base on the stats blog. Normally, we don't really get much into the stats blogs unless there's something major with them. Now, I do want to touch base on this particular set of stats mainly because of the trait. I'll admit that, because that trait is very interesting. Now a lot of people had wanted what they consider a true Tier 6 ambassador for a long time now. Then there's a lot of people that had wanted a Tier 6 Vorcha, and we finally have both. The good thing about this particular ship is it gets the temporal deconstruction abilities and the temporal powers. Now, as far as the stats go, they're kind of basic for a cruiser. For the Narendra, this is the C-Store version. It's 40,500 base hull at 40, 54,000 at 60. It's a 4-4 layout, shield modifier at 1, a bridge officer layout of Ensign Tactical, Lieutenant Tactical, Commander Engineering / Temp Ops, 1 Lieutenant Commander Psi, and 1 Lieutenant Commander Universal. And then it has a 3 Tactical, 4 Engineering, 3 Science. As far as its console layout goes, it gets the Cruiser Mastery package, and it has all 4 of the different cruiser commands. Now, in both ships, the Klingon and the Federation, the console layout is actually the same between the Fleet and the Standard versions. Now, on both of them, you will actually get a 4th Science console whenever you upgrade to the Fleet version. Now, what's actually different here is, if you scroll down to the Klingon version, is they actually have a little bit more tactical ability in this instance. They have a Lieutenant Tactical, a Lieutenant Commander Tactical, a Commander Engineering / Temp Ops, a Ensign Universal, and a Lieutenant Commander Universal. So they kind of switched the seating around a little bit, but that's the major changes that they had here. And also, the Varal can actually load dual cannons. So that is some of the differences, but
which makes sense because it's Klingon.
That it does. Anyway, I want to get some thoughts from you guys before I actually point out my very big gripe here. Well, somewhat of a nitpick gripe, but you know what I mean.
Well, for the actual numbers and all that, I feel like it really does set out for the, they had the Federation feel for a ship being a little more sciencey and whatnot, and the Klingon feel for it to be more of an aggressive frontline vessel, as that would be what they would count as a support cruiser, although, So, I do feel like there is that little dynamic there. Very nice.
As for my thoughts, I'm just happy to see some traditional hull geometry, especially traditional Federation hull geometry that's not, it's instantly recognizable. You look at it and you go, oh yeah, I know what that is. And same with the Klingon ship. Of course, as you know, I kind of come from a different angle. I'm not so much chasing the DPS dragon, but I do like to have ships that that work the way that I want them to work and look the way that I want them to look. And both of these I will definitely be adding to my collection, just because of the tremendous artwork that's done on them. As for the slots and everything, I'll come up with a build for them, and they'll do fantastic. So there's that.
Yep. What about you, Sir Neela? What say you, good sir?
Pretty much the same as Artie. And the fact that it's finally, instead of all these ships that are getting made that are non-symmetrical, have weird shapes, we're getting back to the standard Federation Crayon design.
Okay, fair enough. You know, for me, this is one big gripe I have with the Federation version, and that's the Narendra. The very big gripe I have with this is I hate the fact that that ensign seat is locked to a tactical. I've said this on show before, I still hold this particular view, is I am not a fan of locking an ensign seat into any one particular type of school. Or particular type of career, I guess would be the appropriate word in this instance. For me, I would have rather that have been a universal, and to me it would have been perfect. That's my biggest gripe with this ship, is I wish that was a universal, or if they absolutely wanted to lock it to a specific career, then at least have made that an engineer. Because to me that would have been a lot better off. Because most likely, for me, I see people using that Lieutenant Commander Universal as a tactical seat. Because, to me anyway, there's going to be more folks that are going to want to pick up a FAW 3, and I just don't see that Ensign Tactical being that useful, honestly. It's just kind of there.
You know,
if
it makes
that
a lot of sense, and honestly, any ensign tactical on any ship is only really ever going to do one of two things. Either tactical team 1 or chemosite. But if you had a universal slot, there's so much more you could do with it without really upsetting the balance of anything. I mean, there's no ensign level ability that's going to break the game, you know. And it would provide a lot more versatility without sacrificing anything, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. But, yeah. I know myself and Timberwolf, we actually did some tests with the ship. It's actually pretty good. It does need a bit of turn rate boosting, but I actually did want to touch base on the trait and give you guys the stats, because I know some people are going to want to know that. Let me go to my trait list. I'm actually using this right now. So for everybody looking at the trait, you actually get up to 30 stacks of the History Will Remember. This is every time an enemy shoots you, a new enemy that is. So if you're in an ISA, each time a sphere shoots you, if it's the first time they've shot you, you get a stack of this. It can stack up to 30 times. You get a 1% all damage, that's a Cat 1 thing. Then you get a plus 1% hull regen, a plus 1% maximum hull, and a plus 10% threat generation. And that's only active while threatening stance is active, of course. So that is potentially a 30% all damage boost, 30% hull regen, 30% max hull, and up to 300% threatening stance generation, or threat gen additional that you're getting just from this trait.
That's impressive.
So that is potentially, in just the threatening stance, that is potentially doubling the effectiveness of it. And we calculated this out. If you're using the Dakukan duty officers, if you're using this trait, the cruiser commands, all of this stuff, you can potentially get up to about 1,200% or at least 1,000% threat. And that's before you ever touch embassy consoles or anything like that, if you just wanted to go for broke on threat. But for my tanks out there, definitely going to advise you guys to pick this one up. But anyways, moving right along, I'm sure we could all yak for a good while on these particular ships. But we actually have our new STF coming soon, the Defense of Starbase 1.
That's you.
And as I understand it, the term STF is going away.
Potentially, but we all know them as STFs.
Well, don't mistake. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying they're trying to
Yeah,
change it.
I get you. But basically, for this particular thing, it's if you played or if you watched the Discovery, it's essentially the Defense of the Starbase 1 battle from that. And that is essentially what we're getting a variant of here. It's sort of a holodeck simulation or a holodeck recreation of history. Would your presence at the battle have mattered?
That's kind of cool. That harkens back to a sort of Caverns of Time type experience.
Absolutely.
I hope they do more like that. It'll be fascinating.
You and me both, good sir. But thoughts from Neela or Artie?
Yeah, pretty much I was going to say the same thing Crayo did.
I'm pretty excited about it. I wonder what other, PvE stuff is going to flesh out from after this. Because if this is what the new look of the PvE queues are going to be, I'm excited.
Imagine being there as as Kirk defeats the Gorn on Cestus 3, or be there to watch. I don't know, to watch Kalis overthrow the tyrant Molar.
Yeah.
Or Cisco punch Q.
You're just in the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could do
Oh
with
yeah,
this.
and
if they're
especially
going that
for
route.
even for the Klingons and Romulans, they have a rich backstory. Imagine being able to participate in the Battle of Klak Brock, just like the episode of Deep Space Nine where he was in the holodeck doing that.
Or perhaps even touching base on some of the Earth-Romulan war that we've not got to see on TV yet.
You mean a purpose to use the NX classes? No way.
Yes.
Yeah, he's not entirely wrong there, but, Yeah, like I say, this is on Tribble currently for everybody, so I would advise you guys to get on there and check it out. It's honestly not as bad as we were thinking it would be. Myself and Timber grabbed some of the crew, we went over to Tribble, we tested it out, and it seems like it's going to be an okay mission as far as the time to complete takes. Not too long, not too short. Just kind of in that butter zone, I think. And kind of reminds me a little bit of a cross between the Swarm and something similar to a fleet defense type of deal, if that makes sense. I don't really know how to describe it other than that.
I'm sorry, I'm still imagining myself carving my way through hordes of enemies in Klak Brock. What were you saying?
Yeah, he would. And, getting one of them in chat saying just a little bit difficult to hear you, Sir Neela. But we'll try to get that fixed. Anyways, moving along, we have our PC patch notes, all 4 of them, for the 13th.
I think that's you.
Thought that was Crayo.
What's you?
Yeah, okay. I'm taking that one again, I guess. Apparently they enjoy me yakking this evening. But many Klingon Allegiant duty officers have had their minimum level for usability reduced from 22 to 11. This is actually a holdover thing that they hadn't changed from the days before they lowered the starting level for Klingons, it appears. So this affects the Goshi the Augmented, Viral, Automated Personnel Unit, and several others. Updated the description on Bajoran racial trait to match functionality. Now correctly indicates plus kit performance. It's just instead of generic healing increases. Resolved an issue where the Iconian ground shield could cause the secondary effect of the coordinated effort kit module to end early. And the spikes, the Jem'Hadar mouth accessory is no longer available in the category helmet and wraps. Yeah, pretty basic, I guess, there.
Self-explanatory and simple. The best way patch notes could be.
Yep. But we'll have that in the description for you guys. You can check it out. Like I say, there's really only 4 of them when you think about it. So not really a lot as far as major going on for PC this week. But coming up, we actually have the Recon Destroyer bundle making its way to the console.
Dun dun dun. So that be...
Nominates Neela
So
or
that
Crayo,
being
either
said,
one.
next week, 2 brand new ships are coming to both Xbox One and PlayStation 4. The New Orleans class, updated in the 25th century to the Lafayette class. Funny play on words there for Louisiana locations and names. And the Klingon Empire's Ketha class, Recon Raptor, will soon be available for purchase in the C store, both individually and as a bundle. In addition, the bundle will be 20% off for the first weekend it's on sale. You won't want to miss that sale. You want to get those right away. You'll be able to find more about them in the stats blog tomorrow. Of course, now we've talked a bit about the stats ourselves, so everyone listening should be well acquainted. But first, here's a look at the design and philosophy behind these new ships. So the Lafayette class Recon Destroyer, essentially a refit of the Ambassador class, I believe. Isn't that right?
New Orleans.
It's actually the New Orleans.
Oh, I got it wrong. Sorry, I'm reading 2 things here at the same time. Yep, there it is. Modern redesigned the classic New Orleans class, which first came into service with Starfleet in the mid-2300s. Now, for my money, I really enjoy the way it looks. The extra nacelles, I think those are, that's kind of a nice touch.
Which are actually mission pods.
Okay.
If you remember, quick little interlude here, but if a lot of you are wondering where this ship actually comes from, the original New Orleans, if you remember the Battle of Wolf 359, this is actually one of the original New Orleans was one of the prototype ships that they deployed against the Borg. And the reason it looks kind of like a Galaxy class is because initially they had some leftover Galaxy class model parts, and that's what they used to make
This is
this.
one of the graveyard ships from Wolf 359 then.
Yep.
Yep.
So according to Cryptic, getting the New Orleans class into Star Trek Online has been a long-standing goal, but since STO is set 30 years after Nemesis, they also wanted to evolve that design into something contemporary for the 25th century Starfleet aesthetic. So they, of course, worked with the established blueprint, which was the Andromeda class exploration cruiser. Andromeda, of course, being the 25th century evolution of Galaxy. So STO lead ship artist Thomas Marone adapted the Galaxy-class elegant curves to a slightly more aggressive posture, inspired by the stretch effect that happens when the Enterprise D goes to warp. The Andromeda is meant to always feel in motion, even when it's standing still. But converting the Andromeda to the Lafayette was relatively simple. The New Orleans itself is essentially a smaller version of the Galaxy with longer pylons, longer nacelles, and signature mission pods. So the Lafayette received the same treatment, but using the Andromeda as a base. The design language of Andromeda has proven to be just as robust for the Galaxy design as it was for the model makers who worked in the next generation. So they're excited to add this ship to the game. Next up, Klingon Ketha-class Recon Raptor. So in addition to the Lafayette-class Recon Destroyer for Starfleet, a new Klingon ship will also be coming to Star Trek Online. The Ketha-class Recon Raptor is the Klingon counterpart to the Lafayette-class Recon Destroyer. So when they decided to add New Orleans to Star Trek Online, they knew they would need a Klingon counterpart and decided that the new Raptor-type ship would be an appropriate companion. So it looks like they've basically built this from the ground up. Certainly has Klingon design language all over it. Looks a little bit like sort of a cross between any one of the Raptors that are out there, a little bit of Vorcha and a little bit of maybe even Fleet Moog or Fleet Kurak design elements there. I'm guessing they kind of kit-bashed these all together.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of a cross between sort of one of the pilot Raptors and kind of one of the pilot Raptors, a little bit of elements from a old style Vorcha, if that makes sense.
Right. Sort of a redesigned taser prong thing up in the front there, which nothing wrong with that at all. The nacelles, I mean, the whole thing overall definitely looks Klingon. Definitely looks like a cross between old style Klingon and new style Klingon. So, STO ship artist Ian Richards modeled the ship and brought it to life in the game. Now Klingon captains will have a powerful and versatile new starship to command.
But yeah, that's pretty much what we've got for this particular blog. Kind of sums it up, I guess. Any thoughts from our other two resident screwballs?
Well, I really enjoy the Lafayette, and as well more than the New Orleans, but it's just a very nice design. How it just literally is. The Andromeda just scrunched down a little bit, like it got shrunk in the wash. It's just great, and not to mention the weapon that comes with it for its console. That's still an amazing weapon.
Oh yeah, the Death Star laser.
But instead of blowing up planets, it just gives you a dose of radiation.
I don't think I had quite heard it put as though they shrunk an Andromeda in the wash to get this thing.
So just remember, next time you're running out of space in your Starship garage, toss those suckers into the wash cycle on hot.
Jeez. I would say he's wrong, but he's not. Now that I see it, I can't unsee it. Thank you, Artie.
Hey, think of this. All right, so if they shrunk the Andromeda, now think the Yamato shrunk down to be the size of Lafayette.
Oh God.
Now that's something I want to see. Give me the phaser lands on the tiny ship.
Oh God. No. Just no.
Coming
Just
up
no.
next, let's
No.
talk about micro dreadnoughts, the size of a starfighter, but all the power of the Voth Citadel.
So
Jeez.
basically, what you're saying is it's going to be Harrison Dula's B-wing.
Not entirely untrue.
Not entirely. It's definitely a capital ship killer.
Oh yeah. But anyways, moving right along, we actually have our RP blog. This one, methinks, come out just a little bit late. And this is one of our final ones from the Victory is Life expansion. And this deals basically with how we figured out that the Herc needed the Catcher Cell White.
Cool, cool. I love RP. I especially love to roleplay as a Klingon.
But yes, this little story gives us a little bit more of an in-depth look of the Dominion and all that, especially with a specific vessel known as the Pelican, if I'm pronouncing that right. But it gives you a view of the founder that's on board, as well as the Vorta, as well as a number of Jem'Hadar. I'm not going to actually spoil much of the story, but it is a very nice read to see the interaction between the new style of the Dominion.
I have a question. Did you say it was the Pelican?
No, Pal and Quinn.
Oh, okay.
I say it very fast, so it may have sounded like Pelican.
Right. I just was curious.
Yeah, fair warning, we probably butchered the name. We'll go ahead and throw that little disclaimer out there.
But yeah, it is a very nice read. You do get a little bit more about the this new style of the Dominion, the Catcher Cell White, and all of that. So, when you get the chance, go ahead and just read it. It's very nice.
Nice little tie together, I think, for some of the elements that had a little bit of loose ends. As we were wrapping up that particular story, I think this kind of ties it together quite well. Don't want to, like I say, I don't want to spoil much for you guys. We don't like doing that. We don't like to be that guy or that podcast that spoils those sorts of things. But, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to spoil things either, but you all should know that Darth Vader and Luke, yeah, that's kind of a thing.
And there it is. But, yeah. Anyway, that's our... That's most of our blogs for this evening. There was quite a bit of stuff. We did want to touch base on some of it. There's a lot going on for console and some interesting stuff going on for PC. But this week, for our budget build, we actually have a requested build from a good friend of ours. And what he'd actually requested this week was a higher-end Kronos Dreadnought. Now, for those of you that... may not remember which one that is the 31st Century Dreadnought. Is a cross-faction ship.
So, is that a lockbox or C-store? How do we get that?
That is actually a C-store
Cool.
ship, my good man. And For those people that are wondering, you spend the money one time on this. It's usable by all of the factions in game. Anybody can pick these ships up, and you get yourself, if assuming you buy the big pack, of course, you get the Dreadnought, you get the Temporal Raider, and you get the Temporal Multi-Mission Science Ship. So you actually get a ship that fits pretty much all three styles in that instance.
And how much is that pack when normal pricing when there's not a sale?
Normal price, you're looking at about 6,000
Well,
Zen. So basically, you're paying for the cost of two ships and getting the
Right,
third
that's
free.
a fantastic deal, especially for the type and caliber of these ships.
Absolutely it is. Now, for this particular ship, our user had actually wanted to go with something more of a Polaron build, and for our higher-end builds, we typically assume that there's no maximum EC spending limit at this point. We do try to keep it within reason, and we'll show where we spent some of our EC here in just a minute.
I do want to ask
Now-
a quick question.
Oh,
Do
go
we
ahead.
know particularly why Polaron was selected? Is it simply because they already had that, or is there a specific reason?
As far as I knew, he's looking to test drive Polaron out in light of especially the new Morphogenic set. He's wanted to do Polaron for a while, it's just hadn't really been his cup of tea.
Right,
If
I
you
just
know what
didn't
I
know
mean.
if perhaps he knew of or wanted to test a particular advantage. Sounds like it's just for fun, so let's hit
Yep.
it.
Alrighty. Now for this particular ship, you have a 4-4 weapons layout, 4 in the front, 4 in the back. Up front, we have a Advanced Fleet Polaron beam array. This is the DMG Crit D variety, so that's pretty much ready to go straight out of the box. Then we have the Piezo Polaron beam from the Lucari rep. This will give a bit of healing to the ship, allowing a bit more survivability out of it. Then we have our Chronometric Polaron beam array up front. This gives a bit of this increases the damage that enemies take to their shields, so that's a very nice thing to have. Then also we have our Morphogenic Polaron Torpedo. This is actually a Polaron Energy Torp. Then in the rear of the ship we have 3 more of our Polaron beams, and then we also have our Omni Turret. I call it an Omni Turret because it can function as either a turret or a beam array. It just depends on what firing mode or firing enhancer is activated, be it a beam fall or a scatter volley or rapid fire, something along those lines. Then there's actually some set bonuses that we'll take a look at in just a moment. But for the shields, the engines, and the deflector, to go with the Polaron theme, we actually went with the Dominion, or we actually went with a Dominion theme for this ship, kind of, and we went with the Jem'Hadar set. Now, this is a classic set, been around for quite a while. A lot of people may remember, especially you Jem'Hadar players, because you actually get a Mark 12 version of this set, actually 2 copies of this set for free, one for your shuttle, one for your main ship. Now, for this particular set, the big thing that it's going to give here is a boost to Polaron damage as one of its set bonuses. It also gives some very nice bonuses to Drain X, and the deflector is actually, I believe, still one of the highest Drain X deflectors in game that you can get for free from a mission. I think you actually have to get, I want to think it may be Solanae. It's one of those other deflectors, I can't remember the exact one off the top of my head, before it will even rival what this particular deflector can do. Then, for his warp core, we had to kind of source one out because the Jem'Hadar set, being an older set, did not come with a warp core. We're using our temporal phase overcharged core. It's one that we like to use quite a bit here on the show because of the effect that it gives. It basically gives a temporal negotiator effect in the form of a warp core capacitor. It's going to cut your bridge officer cooldowns in half for the time it's up and running. Then for our devices, there's 4 device slots. We don't really know what a lot of people are going to have, what they prefer to use. Devices are really personal preference in our opinion. But one we will recommend is the Subspace Field Modulator. It basically gives a neutronium's worth of defense value while it's active. Now it does debuff you for a minus 400 protonic damage resist, so that is something to be aware of. There's not a lot of enemies that use proton damage, but it is something to keep your
I
eye
think
out
it's worth
for.
pointing out that the Voth use proton damage, so during the breach event, be careful using that.
Absolutely. Then for our consoles, we have the piezoelectric focuser. This is basically going to give you some turn rate. It's also going to give a very nice chunk of polaron damage in the process as well. This is going to give you the 2-set bonus for our piezoelectric stuff. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. Then we also have our 2 low-buy consoles, and this is where a lot of our EC went into, is when we're assuming a higher-end build, we're assuming by this point low-buy has entered the picture. Now your tachyokinetic converter is basically a assimilated module and a RCS console slammed into one thing. So it's going to give you a bit of turn rate as well as some critical chance and severity, which is always very nice to have. Then for our second console, and this is the console we actually took to Epic for our particular types of budget builds that we do. Once we hit mid-range and above, we always assume that there's enough dilithium to max out at least one item. In this case, we chose the bioneural infusion circuits. Reason being is once you max this console out, you're going to be getting at least 25% critical severity off of just this one console, and that is a huge,
now,
huge
if I
benefit.
may, when you say max it out, you're talking about not just Mark 15, but also gold.
Yeah, take it all the way to the highest
Cool.
rarity and everything that it can get. Then we also have, for our last engineering console, we have our chronotachyon capacitor. This actually comes with the ship, and we'll take a quick look at that in game. And this is actually a very nice console that can be used defensively. It gives a bit of hull capacity and a bit of Starship engineering readiness, worth about at least 1 point in the skill tree of value to you. Then whenever you activate it, it's basically functions as sort of an AoE taunt, a hull and shield heal, and gives quite a few benefits. Taunting up to 5 foes within 5 kilometers for 15 seconds. You get a bit of hull healing every second, a bit of shield healing every second for 15 seconds. Then you also get some very good... it also applies the chronotachyon charges, which is what I was building into, and it gives you between a plus 20 to a plus 40% bonus directed energy damage. So that's pretty much any energy type damage. Now that is a category 2 bonus, so that's going to be applied after the fact. It's also going to give anywhere from a 5% to a 10% critical hit chance, anywhere from 25 to 50% critical severity, and incoming energy damage adds to self one of the chronotachyon capacitance counters for 15 seconds, stacking up to 20 times. So once you max it out, you're going to be getting the maximum benefits there while this is active. So that is some potentially huge, huge bonuses that you're getting. Then for our science consoles, these are some consoles you've seen us use quite a bit here on the show. We have a restorative particle focuser, which is going to give a bit of exotic damage if we pop a heal. This is the Drain X ×2 variety to buff the drain of our polarons, or the power drain that they give. We have our temporal disentanglement suite. This is from the Butterfly mission. It's going to give a nice little bit of shield capacity, a bit of shield damage resistance, and it's also going to give a boost to your critical hit chance and severity based on your Ox power, and it's a pretty sizable boost that it can give you. Then we have our assimilated module for some critical chance and severity, also a slight bit of control expertise. For our tactical consoles, this is also when we start getting into some of the other bits of fleet gear, and we have some Spire tactical consoles in this instance. Now, if you're using the 3-piece, all 3 pieces of the morphogenic, you're going to be able to pick up a good chunk of critical chance and a good chunk of critical severity. In this particular case, we used 2 of our vulnerability locators, which are going to boost our polaron damage, as well as giving a nice chunk of critical hit chance. And then we also had a single exploiter on the build that's going to give a bit of critical severity and a bit of polaron boosting. Then we also have our third thing, which is our morphogenic matrix controller, which we're mainly using that for the Polaron boost and to complete the set that it gives. Now, what's so special about the morphogenic set and whatnot is the bonuses that it gives. If you have 2 of the pieces on the ship, you're going to get a 15% cooldown reduction to pretty much all of your major tactical enhancers. Beamfire at will, overload, scatter volley, any of the mine patterns. So that's going to cut those cooldowns by a pretty fair amount. Then if you have the 3-piece, you actually get a different buff depending on what power you activate. If you activate a beam enhancement, such as overload or fire at will, you get a 2% critical hit chance boost. If you activate a cannon enhancing power, such as scatter volley or rapid fire, you get a 10% critical chance boost. And then if you activate a torpedo spread or some other type of power, such as a mine pattern, you get, I believe it is, I want to think it's like 7.5% of a Category 1 boost. But you can get up to 3 stacks of these, and they refresh once you hit the maximum stacks. They stay active for 45 seconds normally. So that is potentially 6% critical hit chance, 30% critical severity, and a 22.5% Category 1 weapons damage boost off of just these items here. Then for our piezoelectric stuff, this is going to be our 2-piece that we're going to have for having the beam and our piezo console. This is going to give a nice chunk of photon projectile damage. It's 15%, 15% Polaron damage, and 20 drain expertise. You're going to have a very, very high drain on this particular ship. But depending on how you play your cards, you could even remove the other 2 locators and use exploiters if you've got a high enough critical chance elsewhere. Now for our skills on this particular ship, it's our standard build. Mouse over it really quickly for everybody. It uses 14 engineering, 14 science, and 18 tactical points. You can see our lieutenant skills, lieutenant commander, commander rank skills, captain, and our admiral. Now the quick thing I will note is that the engineering readiness you get in your skill tree will indeed stack with what's on the consoles. That is cumulative. Then for our specializations, we went with Intel Primary and Miracle Worker Secondary. This is going to give some nice offensive value in the terms of the tools you get from Intel, and it's also going to be balanced out a little bit by the Miracle Worker. Then let me go to our traits here. Now for this particular character, this is also where we spent a bit of money. For our personal Starship traits, or space traits, we have our beam training for some free Category 2 beam damage, beam barrage for further beam damage. That's our R&D crafting trait. We always assume you've leveled at least 1 school, and in this case we assume he's chosen beams. We have elusive for free defensive value, fleet coordinator for free damage based on how many people are in your party, 2% minimum, and a 10% maximum boost. We have the career-specific trait for engineers. If you're not an engineer, and you would like to use this build, swap in your own career-specific trait and you'll do fine. In his case, he actually is an engineer, so that's actually good for him. And he had debated using it on a tactical tune, and one of the things that he would make the change of, I actually left in the notes for him, some slight changes to the traits. But moving along, we have our point-blank shot. This is going to increase your energy weapon damage the closer you are to the target, up to a certain maximum. We have the context is for kings. This is actually one of our money traits that we picked up, and it depends on whether or not you've been shot in the past second. If you haven't been damaged, you get a small boost to the damage you do. Otherwise, you get a small damage resistance rating boost. So it's kind of an adaptable trait, I guess you could say. We have our projectile training, which is going to affect our energy torpedo. because it is technically a projectile weapon, even though it's dealing energy damage. Then we have our Ablative Shell, which is going to be a nice little healing power whenever you drop below a certain point. It's a nice heal over time and resistance effect. For our Starship traits, we stuck more of a budget end, because I don't like assuming what people have for Starship traits, even at the higher end, unless they specifically tell us whenever we're doing this. But for our Starship traits, we have the best defense. This is going to grant a hull healing buff along with normal effects to our attack patterns. Our predictive algorithms for a bit of accuracy boost. Then we have our going the extra mile. This comes from our Miracle Worker. It's going to give a nice boost to our maximum hull capacity when we heal somebody above 90%. Then finally we have our Honored Dead. Since he is a Federation character, we went ahead and picked this up. KDF players will actually have to get this off of the Ship of the Dead or the Sarcophagus Dreadnought. Once this buff stacks up, it's going to be worth about 10% damage reduction across the board to you, and that's a pretty hefty bonus. For our space reputations in this instance, we have the Advanced Target Systems for free severity, Precision for free critical hit chance, the Aux Power Offense for a Category 2 damage boost based on Aux Power. Then we have our Magnified Firepower, which is a static Category 2 damage boost. Then we have for our active reputations the Anti-Time Entanglement, which is a nice little AoE slow and physical damage effect to foes. Biomolecular Shield Gen for a bit of shield healing and damage reduction in combat. That's the little green ball you see people throwing up. Deploy Sensor Interference Platform for an "oh crap, I'm gonna die" button. This will taunt foes to itself, and it will last until it is either destroyed or the time limit is up, whichever of those comes first. And then we have our Quantum Singularity Manipulation. This increases all of our science stats by plus 100 for the duration, as well as granting a temporary cloaking effect. To get a little bit more bang for your buck out of your Anti-Time Entanglement, pop some of your exotic buffs first, follow with something maybe like a Gravity Well, pop your Quantum Singularity, and drop your Anti-Time on top of it, and you'll get a lot more bang for your buck that way. Coming up on our Bridge Officers, this is obviously a temporal ship. Now for this particular ship, you have a Lieutenant Universal / Temp Ops. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Go ahead.
It's all good. I thought you was going to say something, but anyway. Then we also have a Lieutenant Commander Tactical, Commander Engineering / Temp Ops, Ensign Engineering, and a Lieutenant Commander Science. And for our Commander Engineering / Temp Ops, we have the Emergency to Engines 1. It's going to boost power to our engines, as well as give a little bit of speed to move the ship around a little bit better. We also have our Reverse Shield Polarity for some defensive value to the ship. Then we have Emergency to Weapons 3. It's going to be a nice damage boost as well as power boost to our weapons. Then, to take advantage of one of the temporal operative powers at least, we have the Recursive Shearing 3. Then for our final engineering power, we have on the ensign seat, we have our Engineering Team 1. This is going to give some hull healing as well as purging viral matrix type effects. For our Lieutenant Commander Science, we have Science Team 1, Hazard Emitters 2, and Gravity Well 3. So some shield healing, a heal over time effect to our hull, and then the pull and exotic damage of the Gravity Well. Now for the tactical powers, this is where we get to take advantage of the morphogenic set quite a bit. On our Lieutenant Commander Tactical, we have a tactical team that's going to redirect our shield facings and give some damage boosting. We have our attack pattern beta. It's going to debuff the enemies that you shoot. And we also have our fall 3 to throw our beams in every single direction, just about it, and hit quite a few of the enemies. Then we have our torpedo spread to take advantage of our torpedo. And then we have a copy of Cannon Scatter Volley on here. Now, a lot of people at this point might be kind of curious,
Well,
why
it's very
would we have
simple.
scatter volley?
It's very
on a
simple.
ship
It's
like
because
this?
we like flinging ping pong balls at a destroyer.
Yeah, pretty much. But in seriousness, what this actually does is this allows us to get all 3 of the bonuses from our morphogenic set. We get the bonuses for activating a beam enhancement. We also get the bonuses for weapon damage from activating a torpedo or mine type of effect. And then we also get the critical severity for activating a cannon type power. Now we should note that this, depending on what order you activate them in, will actually cause the Omni turret, the morphogenic energy weapon, to either fire as a turret or to fire as a beam. And it just depends on which of the 2 enhancements you activate first. So this is going to allow you to benefit from all 3 of those buffs and get a lot more mileage out of the ship that way. Now for our cost for the ship, now keep in mind this is a higher end build. It's going to take a bit longer to get the resources. Now in total, he's looking at about, this is assuming he goes a pure energy credit route, he's looking at about 254,850,000 EC to build the ship. That's assuming that he has no low buy and has to go out and buy keys in order to actually get the low buy, which is actually the biggest cost here. The ablative shell and the context for kings weren't that bad, but as to how we figured out how many keys he's going to need, you take the 400 low buy it takes to actually get both of the consoles, you divide that by the average of 7 low buy per key, which is what the standard average is. Then, once you have how many keys you need, you multiply that by the current going rate of the keys, in this case 4.125, and that's how we get the cost for that. Now for his dilithium, this is again one of the pricier builds because we're going more towards the high end in this instance. He's looking at just a little bit shy of 120,000 dill. He's looking at 119.5. So in total, he's looking at about 15 days build time, assuming he has the EC, and assuming only 1 tune is refining dilithium per day. So it may not be the cheapest ship that we've ever put out, may not be the shortest build time, but once you get more towards the higher end, some of the cost can add up a good bit. Yeah, any comments, questions?
Well, I guess
thoughts
it
on our
doesn't really
build
qualify
tonight,
as a
guys?
budget build per se, but it does look like a fun build.
Well, not the traditional type of budget that we do, where we try to go as cheap as possible, but
Yeah, I have to say it looks very flashy. I'll have to say.
Yeah. It is nice though to have some high-end builds once in a while, and there are people out there for whom this would be no sweat. And yeah, I mean, I like the way it looks. It and with the polarons on there, I think it'll be relatively canonical if you think about it.
I suppose so. Yeah, he's going to have quite a few effects that he can work with. He's going to have a lot of boost to his polarons above and beyond what he might normally have. He's going to have the piezoelectric stuff to help keep him alive better. He's going to be able to bust through their shields quicker, and he's going to be able to drain their power all at the same time. And that's, to slightly paraphrase Joe Biden, our former vice president, it's a big bleeping deal. If you catch the pun there. But anyways, that's what we have for our budget build this evening. Coming up for the RP corner, there's not really a lot in the bugs section going on this week. But if y'all do have bugs, feel free to let us know. We'll be sure to pass them right along to the developers. But for the RP corner, what have you got for us this week, dude?
For basically what I've noticed for recently is that, since we had the Iconian War, and I've saw a lot of the big RP fleets, role playing every big battle that they've been trying to be a part of. watching, as they are now entrenched behind battle lines, actually have people, actually have week-on events, of people stuck within trenches holding a phaser rifle, hoping that a Herald shock trooper doesn't just see them in their little foxhole. And now that we've definitely moved past all that, and now it's come back into a fold that we're seeing, like the Herc and the Dominion and stuff like that again, we're somewhat back into that entrenchment idea for RP. And I've seen some people have a little bit of an issue of trying to either get back in or not trying to get into it. So here is some RP plot ideas to help go on with RP without endless warfare. So the first off I have here is most times you see in Star Trek, someone is exploring, someone finds some ruins on a planet. But hey, that may sound boring or whatnot, but who knows, maybe you find an ancient artifact, or you see something glimmering at the end of a dark hallway, and what do you know, you find traps layered all across the place. Now you have to do your dexterity rolls, and you gotta jump across giant ravines, and you gotta climb a cave wall just to see what's out there. And maybe you run into some ancient defenses, so you still have a little bit of your combat in there for those tactical characters. The next one I have here is hostility at the diplomacy table. So you got two or more rivaling factions yelling at each other for one reason or another. Maybe mining rights, maybe someone invaded someone other's place without jurisdiction, who knows what. But for the most part, you could have play these characters as the middleman. Play them as the middleman. Take whatever information from one group, take the information from the other group, and try to work it all out, and up to the point of making sure you don't roll very badly to where it becomes a all-out war in the middle of your briefing room. So that may be a little tense for the most part, depending on how your GMs decide to run it. Maybe it'll be super simple, and you guys just figure out that you should all go out for ice cream at the end of it. Whatever works. And this last one I have that actually happened recently for an RP event that I ran for. Basically, your crew and the other player characters have been kidnapped and put into slavery by some faction. For instance, for the event I ran through, the crew of the ship I was a part of got kidnapped by a rogue Breen faction, and were now forced to play as the slave crew of this giant dreadnought that was rampaging across the Breen border, taking out like little surveillance stations and defense places of the nearby nations that are just out there. And we've had to go through not just the regular combat of making sure we don't die and we can somehow escape, but the ethical issues of, do I blow up some innocent that I've been told to shoot at, or do I get shot myself so I don't have to do the unethical idea? And sometimes you may have to do the wrong thing for the right reasons, and who knows? That's the glory of this sort of RP. You're out of contact from the usual sources of help, and you may try to break out however you like. So have fun with that. But no, that's a very simple list of plots that you can use at any sort of way and have fun with it is the idea. So if you have any questions about how to exactly roll some of those event ideas out, feel free to contact me. I have lists upon lists to help out with that.
That definitely sounds like some viable alternatives to the usual go here and shoot this guy type of stuff. Which I'm sure does get repetitive quite a bit if it's done often enough. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, folks,
Nope, none.
I'll go ahead. But, anyways, folks, that's what we've got for a show this evening. We hope you guys have enjoyed it. But, anyways, before we head out, good shout out to our friends over at the Temporal Armada. Very cool bunch of people. Definitely check out their radio program. Very nice bunch of folks. Also, be sure to check out our other good friends over at the Kurtang Pirate Radio. The party is there, and they really do have a good selection of music that they play. You never know, what you're going to hear
noting
on
that
there.
Wednesday is going to be Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah, good time to listen to Kurtang and party with those guys, I guess. But, anyways, if you've got a request for a budget build, feel free to let us know. We do take requests, as you guys can see this evening. We do all kinds of levels. Maybe you've got only a bare bones type of budget. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel to get the ship put together. Maybe you're looking for something more along the mid-range type of thing. Or maybe you want to go more high-end like our user tonight requested. Whatever it is, let us know. We'll try to help you. Say, hey, I've got this ship. This is my budget level. This is what I want to do, and we'll hook you up. If you think that your ship and your gear are in order, but maybe it's just your piloting needs a little bit of work, maybe you're just not getting to that transformer quick enough, or maybe it's just certain enemies give you grief, whatever it is, get us a brief little video clip if you're piloting. Feel free to submit that to us, link it to us through YouTube, or whatever way is best for you. We'll check that out and give you some tips and tricks to improve. If you've got any bugs, feel free to pass those along to us. I will guarantee personally that they get to the developers. They don't like bugs any more than you or I do. Finally, if you have any requests for the RP Corner, feel free to let Artie know. Maybe you just don't understand what the best way might be to go about rolling out a certain event. Maybe you're looking for event alternatives, whatever it is, and we may just talk about it on the show.
Well, thanks for
anyways,
tuning in.
Oh, go ahead.
Or, yeah.
Yes, definitely. Without you guys,
That's right.
we wouldn't have a show. We'd just be a bunch of nerds on the internet yakking about STO. Not that we don't do that anyway. But
Outro time. This has been an SARoss Internet Television production. Be sure to tune in next week for your next dose of Star Trek Online info.
And as always, please remember, folks, have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.